name is M.Ciccotelli, and I am doing an ed talk, and the title of my talk is Seeing Who You Are. Now, being new to the field of education, well, the study of education, let's call it that, not to education itself, because, well, education is everywhere, is it not? My job here in the church, someone will come up and say they have this great idea for something, and everyone's like, yes, that's excellent, and then they kind of look at each other and go, gosh, but whose job would that be then? And the joke around here is, it's Marcella's job. And the reason it's a joke is because I'm in charge of education, and you can basically stick anything under education, because education is everywhere and everything. So what I've noticed is professional educators love to name, well, everything. You guys name things like these really kind of big, wordy things that, I don't know, in my mind just don't stick. But the thing you do is then you give it a nice acronym. Sometimes your acronyms, they're the same, there's two of the same acronyms, and I'm going, does that mean this, or does that mean this? So, kind of confusing. It's the same way, though, I'm sure, in any field. But I just like to joke about it. But today, I am talking about culturally relevant teaching. Acronym would be CRT or CRE for culturally relevant education. Well, you can read, and there's so much great research out there, pages and pages. I've boiled down culturally relevant education. I believe I've boiled down culturally relevant education into one single foundational principle. And that is care about your students as individuals. Now, some of you are rolling your eyes and going, there's no way it's that simple. It's absolutely not possible that it's that simple. So now comes the tricky part, right? I need to convince you that this is true. So we will start with the first word, care. Have you looked up the word care recently? Probably not. I mean, we know what it means, so it's not like something that we look up, but I'll tell you what the dictionary says. It says, to feel concern or interest, to attach importance to something. Sort of boring. So the next step that I did after the dictionary was to look deeper. I went to ancient stories based on the word care. And here's what I found out. The word care had a dual meaning to the ancients. On one hand, it meant worry, trouble, and anxiety. And on the other hand, it meant providing for the welfare of another. Worry, care, anxiety, providing for the welfare of another. And those things connected. Here's an interesting myth from the Romans, and it's called the myth of care, or the myth of Cura. And it goes something like this. Cura was a mythological figure, and one day she was walking through a muddy stream. She picked up some mud, and she fashioned a person. Figure of a person, right? A few moments later, Jupiter came by, and Cura said, Jupiter, could you please bring my creation to life? And Jupiter said, of course, I would be happy to breathe life into it. And oh, by the way, I think it should be named after me. That's what Jupiter said. Cura didn't like this one bit. She liked the idea that it would be alive, but not that it would be named after Jupiter. She felt being the person that created the goddess that created the being, it should be named after her. So an argument ensued, and in the midst of the argument, Terra, the goddess of the earth, right, comes up and says, hey, you forgot about me. Where do you think you got the mud from to create the being? So Saturn was called in as a judge, and he examined the facts. He took everything in, and he decided Jupiter, who gave life to the human, would, after it died, would receive its soul. He decided Terra, who basically provided the mud for the body of the human, would receive the body back into the earth. And then Care, who first fashioned the human, would get to have and to hold it as long as it lived. And in the end, the creation was called Homo, since it seemed to be made from humus. So while you might have always thought that care was a simple word, there's a lot of depth there. care, to have it, to hold it as long as it lived. As the myth suggests, humans are brought into the world by care and sustained by care. You see, care is not an easy thing. Here you can see a depiction of, I believe, Jupiter sitting. There's care forming the being out of mud. So yes, care may seem simple, but I think it's a little more complicated than that. But it is what will set our classrooms apart from mediocre to extraordinary. And here are some steps that will help us have and hold our students. What does have and hold remind you of? Does it sound like a marriage vow to you? That's what's interesting to me. It does. It sounds like a marriage vow. Interesting there. Here are the 3 steps. Build. What are we building? We're building relationships with our students. Number 2, connect. Connect lessons to students' lives. Number 3, be open. Be honest. Bring up the hard topics. An excellent example of building relationships is the story of Mr. Hall in the research by Aronson and Laughter. The study explains how he does not send students out of the room or send them to the principal's office when they misbehave, because he feels that that signals a loss of care for them. Instead, Mr. Hall gives out second chances. He freely gives out second chances. This is just one example of building relationships with those in our classrooms. He also builds community in his classrooms by being an active listener and recognizing the identity of all of those in the classroom, the unique identity. Another way was brought to my attention that just this week to build relationships. My son is getting ready to have his Eagle Court of Honor this weekend, and he had to choose one leader to present him with his Eagle Medal. And he has 5 amazing leaders. And he chose one, and to be honest with you, he chose the one I least expected. Because this was the person that he said, gosh, I don't know if he likes me, he's so serious, Mom, you know, kind of stuff like that throughout the years. So I was really surprised when he chose him, but I didn't say anything, and I said, great, I'm so excited, that's going to be wonderful, make sure you call him and let him know. And so as we were driving in the car, he goes, Mom, do you know why I chose Tony? And I said, I have no idea, honey. Why did you choose him? And he said, the reason I chose him was because he was the first leader that trusted me. That really surprised me. But there built a relationship between the 2 of them. And that trust was built in the fact that he told him to go home and, you know, record his push-ups or something for a merit badge, something as simple as that. And Andre said, when I came back and I told him how many I did, he believed me. He didn't make me do them. He didn't make me show him right there. The other leaders would have said, oh, I don't believe you can do 12 push-ups. Go ahead and do that. But he said, I honestly can, and I wrote it down, and he believed me. So there is a point of a way to build trust. And it's hard. I know that, because sometimes you don't want to trust the student. But think about that, building relationships and that trust. The most common and perhaps the most effective, most talked about strategy to culturally relevant education, according to Aronson and Laughter, is connecting lessons to students' lives. So math that relates to real issues, reading newspaper to find topics, and having them choose the topics. Asking students about their life experiences. Whoa, did you hear that? Asking them about their life experiences. That means you're asking, and then you're listening, and then relating. That way they can share with one another. You also get a glimpse of what the 17 hours of their day that you're not a part of their life, or more, 17 hours depending on what kind of teacher you are, what's going on in their day. Here you can see some of the quotes that I will be connecting the 3 points from. So even at age 5, kindergarten teacher in the study found that connecting to students' lived experiences, connecting those to the curriculum, allowed her students to better understand the concepts and strengthened her relationship with her students. This is 5-year-olds. This gives them a voice and builds compassion within teachers. And that's important for us. When we know what's going on in their lives, we have the ability to be more compassionate towards them, do we not? Number 3, being open. Now this one will seem scary. The key to being open with individuals in your class is not thinking that you have all the answers or that you have to have all the answers. You don't. Let's admit it up front. Struggling together is a valuable skill that builds relationships. We know this. It happens in our families all the time. So here's an example for you. I've been afraid for a long time to bring up with my youth group the controversial issues surrounding the church. And of course you know what those are. Violence in the Bible, evolution and how that fits, homosexuality in the church. Those things are sort of surrounding us as adults in the church. And so the kids ask about it. And I was like, oh, I'm not even going to go there. But finally I decided, wait a minute, I need to go there. I don't have the answers, but perhaps we can struggle with these issues together. So we started a study called Can I Ask That? And I decided not to just jump in with the hot button topics right away. I started with a session called Is the Bible True? And, talking about what is truth. The session went great, but the moment the lesson was over, the students came up to me and they said, when are you talking about the big topics? The ones I asked about, the homosexuality and evolution. I won't be here next week and I want to make sure I don't miss those days. Did we leave that study having all the answers? No. We might know what the Bible said on it, but our minds were fluid, still forming ideas. And that's kind of a good way for minds to be at times. So in actuality, the reason that the students were into it is because it relates to their lives. This is happening in their lives right now. They're going to school and they're asking these questions. They're seeing what's going on and they're wondering how it relates and how it relates to their faith. So that's an example really of all 3. Building, connecting, and being open. Could be being open, which causes us to connect, which then builds relationships with our students. So understanding we don't have to know everything is so important. What happens is, I think as an adult, the students respect you for having the courage to bring up stuff other people don't bring up. And Albert Einstein said this, speaking of courage, the way to combat prejudice as a man of goodwill is to have courage to set an example by word and deed. So by bringing up the hard stuff, you're setting an example. It's okay to not have all the answers. So my challenge to you is to see yourself first as that mythological figure, the one named Care. No, you didn't get to pick up mud and create your class. But there they are sitting in front of you, formed of earth, breathed into, and each very much their own individual. Yet needing cared for. Yes, needing to learn to multiply, divide, read and write and understand. But also needing to know your name. And I don't know about you, but my name is Care. Perhaps it's yours too.